4 o'clock bulletins at once. I'm Don Richards.
Lassiter, News Radio 970, WFLA.
Well, hi there, fun seekers. Hi, indeed. Welcome in. Welcome to this Monday edition. Monday edition, that's what it is, indeed, of the Bob Lassiter Show. Just sitting here reading some of my mail. Sorry about that. For this May the 1st, 1989. 1989, that's what it is. This is one of those shows where you're not going to be treated to a monologue. You're not going to be treated to any great thoughts from me. I'm simply going to lay a little question out there, a little concept, and I know that you're going to be able to answer it. I know that you're going to be able to correct any misconceptions that some people might have. Now, this is not a show on religion, but I do hasten to point out one nation under God, in God we trust, etc., etc. We just wish to point those things out. And then ask a question. You see, most people in this country, of course, say that they firmly believe in God, and that's cool. I have no problem with that. And most people in this country seem to know precisely what it is that God wants for them or for their families or for me, as far as that goes. So all I want to know from you today is, would God be in favor of the minimum wage? (990-9352) is the number in Hillsborough County. 990-WFLA. In Pinellas County, 461-9352. 461-WFLA. Unfortunately, we couldn't get God on the show this afternoon. I mean, we couldn't even book him any time this week. And we decided we wouldn't go, ask beyond this week. So therefore, it's going to pretty much be up to you to answer for him. And that shouldn't be any trouble for you whatsoever, because you guys are doing that all the time anyway. And so therefore, I will ask you, and you can answer for God. Would God be in favor of an increase in the minimum wage? And actually, if you'd like to take that a step further, I will also entertain that. And just say, just answer the question, would God be happy with the distribution of his wealth in this nation? People are always walking around saying, oh, thank God for putting me here, thank God for all the riches and the blessings. So therefore, they must be his riches and his blessings. And I wonder if you think he'd really be happy with the distribution of them. Okay, so, you can go at it from either angle. Would God be in favor of an increase in the minimum wage? Or would God be happy with the distribution of his wealth in this nation? Now, it doesn't get any better than that. This is one of those shows where there could be a great deal of very, very embarrassing, silent, dead air until things get up and running. Now, it's not my embarrassment. It would be your embarrassment. But 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Oh, my goodness, there's one on the long-distance line. Excuse me, the practical joke line. Winter Haven, Winter, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes. How are you doing?
Fine, sir.
Okay. Well, ask the questions.
Sir, you can't remember them?
Well, the first question was about would God support the minimum wage?
Right.
And I think so. The Bible says that a laborer is worthy of his hire.
And
about the other question, would God like the distribution of wealth? Probably not. Most people are much too selfish with their wealth. Get it for themselves and aren't willing to help others.
Okay. Thank you ever so much there, Winter Haven. They have long winters there in Winter Haven, apparently. 11 1/2 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. Nortner is, it's, gosh, golly gum, I've seen the Nortner twinkle more in my time. I've seen it twinkle considerably more in my time. But that's okay. We always, to tell you the truth, we kind of get a good feeling when we drop one of these on you, and people just kind of sit there and look at the radio and look at the wall and look up the ceiling and look down at the floor and look over to the radio and wonder about seeing if, they got a movie star that they're interviewing on the other station, and look at the wall and look at the radio and look up the ceiling, down at the floor. I wonder if maybe, they can get a free astrology reading somewhere on some other station. St. Petersburg, hi, St. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi.
Hi.
We run a small family business. Altogether, there are 5 people employed.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, we're not rich. We've got a good product, but we start everyone from day one at $10 an hour with full health benefits, covering their family if they need it, because nobody can work on the minimum wage that is now the law, and no human being can live decently, raise their kids decently on what we felt was the amount of $10 an hour.
Okay, I thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, that's 2 people that say yes, God would be in favor of an increase in the minimum wage. Perhaps for those of you who are, somewhat on the fence for the Republic, you might want to respond as to whether or not God would be in favor of the President Bush proposed $4.35 an hour minimum wage versus the congressionally proposed $4.65 an hour minimum wage, as to which one God would favor there. And Safety Harbor, Safety, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I think God would be in favor of the minimum wage, probably a super minimum wage.
Mm-hmm. Why do you suspect it isn't and that the people aren't?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, whether you're religious or you're not religious, you're alluding to the fact that the earth's wealth was created by God.
Well,
and I think a fair, the earth's real riches were created by God. Am I correct? If you're a religious person?
That's what the book says, yeah.
Okay, if you're a religious person, you believe that the earth and its riches were created by God. So a fair God wouldn't want an unequal distribution of what he created. At least I don't think he would you?
Well, it would seem a little bit difficult to me to buy that one, as well. For example, supposedly God created everything, and he created the gold, much of which, of course, he made very difficult to obtain. And then, of course, the religious people would tell you that, in essence, what you should do with the gold is use it to worship God, which I don't quite understand. That doesn't make a great deal of sense to me.
Well, philosophically, if God created all the means of wealth, which are the minerals, basically, because without minerals, there would be no wealth. Who do the minerals belong to? The minerals belong to nations? The minerals belong to people?
One second here now. You said without minerals, there wouldn't be any wealth. Well, I'm not so sure about that.
Well, how would you have wealth without minerals?
Well, wealth is whatever you and I agree that it is.
Yes, but wealth is based on manufacturing and product. Without minerals, there is no manufacturing.
Well, no, I beg your pardon. We could trade grains of sand back and forth between each other and pay for them in leaves, if that's what we decided that was the measure of wealth.
But there would be no products. There would be no manufacturing without minerals. What could be created without minerals?
Well, you don't have to have a Cadillac to be happy.
No, I'm talking about a Cadillac. I'm talking about iron ore, coal, oil, all of these things. It's impossible to have a modern society without minerals.
Oh, a modern society, I would agree with that, but who says you have to have a modern society?
Well, you couldn't even plant without minerals. I mean, you wouldn't be able to make a tractor or anything.
Who says you have to have a tractor?
Feed the world.
Who says you have to have a tractor?
Well, okay.
And in terms of feeding the world, well, if you didn't have tractors, there just wouldn't be that many people.
I guess so.
I mean, they were able to feed the world long before there were tractors.
But all kidding
tractors allowed you to have more people.
All kidding aside, this is something that I've given a lot of thought to as far as who does the actual wealth of the world belong to? Does it belong to nations? Does it belong to individuals? Does it belong to people who are able to manipulate paper to their own end?
Well, it seems to belong to people who are, rather high up in the Republican Party.
Well, it belongs to people who are powerful enough to control it.
Mm.
And those who are powerful enough to control it have a disproportionate share of the Earth's real wealth.
So then, in other words, you think that God would also be very unhappy with the distribution of his wealth?
Absolutely, without question. First of all, philosophically, let's just say that it takes...
Well, first of all, I don't really have time philosophically. I've kept you on for a fair number of minutes now. So okay. you believe that God would want an increase in the minimum wage and would not be happy with the distribution of the wealth?
Because one goes hand in hand with the other. I mean, minimum wage, we're talking about minimum entry.
You're trying to squeeze in more words here. I thank you very much. Pinellas Park. Hi, Pinellas. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Afternoon, Bob.
Hi.
If there is a God, an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-caring God, would he be in favor of the minimum wage? I think not.
Oh, really? Why's that?
Because that's putting a minimum, or in some cases a maximum monetary value on people.
No, it's never putting a maximum monetary value on people.
Well, in some cases...
Well, how can you explain that?
Well, if God said, okay, I'm in favor of the minimum wage...
No. Let's go back and explain how the minimum wage puts a maximum value on people.
Well, if I say this is what I'm going to hire you for, the minimum wage, that's all you're going to get, that's the maximum I'm going to give you, I'm placing a value on that person.
No, it's the minimum that you're going to give me.
That's the minimum, that's the maximum, that's the cap.
No, it's not a cap, it's a floor. There's nothing to prevent you from paying more than the minimum wage, is there?
That's right. There's not anything.
So therefore, it was a bunch of gobbledygook when you suggested that a minimum wage was actually a maximum wage.
Well, maybe I didn't have time to explain it. What I'm saying is, if I say this is what I'm going to pay you, this is the minimum, this is the maximum. I mean, this is all I'm going to pay you because I can replace you for the.
There is no maximum wage.
Well, that's true.
That's right.
Then I stand corrected. But
yes, you certainly do several times already in this conversation.
The point I'm trying to make is you can't place a monetary value on somebody's worth. And if I say I'm going to pay you $3.35 an hour, and that's all you're going to get out of me.
Wait a second. Do you work?
Of course I do.
Do you have a wage?
Of course I do.
Well, then how come you can have a monetary value placed on you?
Because
but people that are in the minimum wage can't have a monetary. It's bad to place a value on them.
God doesn't place his minimum or maximum wage on me. I'm the one that sets that wage. But if I say all I'm going to pay you is the minimum wage, and you're not going to make any more working for me.
So in other words, you think that it would be fine with God for people who had power and therefore jobs and money. It would be fine with God for those people to, in essence, take advantage of the powerless who didn't have jobs and money.
No, that's not what I said.
Instead, I'm trying to figure out if that's what you think the God position is.
No, that's not what I said. I don't think God would be in favor of the minimum wage.
So, in other words, God would be in favor of the people who have the jobs, the power, and the money to distribute, in essence, taking advantage of those who didn't have the jobs, the power, and the money.
No.
So they could pay them as low as they wanted to pay them. There was not a damn thing they could do about it.
No.
Well, that's what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to, isn't it?
That's not what I said.
Well, I know that's not what you said. We're having a very difficult time getting out of you what you're saying.
The question was...
That's what it boils down to, isn't it?
The question was, would God be in favor of minimum wage?
But that's what it boils down to, isn't it?
It may be the way you see it, but the way I'm trying to express it, no.
The way you're trying to express it, no. I know, because you're trying to get out from underneath it what it boils down to.
Well, I'm trying to get out from underneath, Bob. What I'm saying is, you asked, would God be in favor of minimum wage? And I said no, because that's placing a value on a person's worth.
Right.
I don't think that's correct.
Of course, God doesn't want to place a value on a cheap person's worth. It's okay for a God to place a value on somebody, who's earning more than the minimum wage, like you.
Well, of course I earn more than minimum wage, Bob, because I get out there and I'll hustle and I make my worth more.
So the people who earn the minimum wage don't hustle and bust their butts.
That's not what I said.
Sure it is.
It's not.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Everybody started at minimum wage. I started at less.
I beg your pardon. Not everybody starts at minimum wage.
Well,
that's an utterly incredibly
most people do when they go into the workforce when they're young. They're
I don't think most people do at all.
Well, that's in my experience. People that I know, they go out there and they start at the Burger King, so they start at the whatever, and they start minimum wage or not very much above it.
Yeah.
And they try and they work a little harder and they up their own worth. But the question is, if would God approve of the minimum wage? I don't think God would approve of any monetary value being placed on somebody's worth.
Amazing. Of course, he does in the book.
Well, I don't abide by the book, and I don't believe that there's a God. If I did, I would not think that God would place.
If I were you and I kind of thoughts that you had, I would want to be an atheist too.
Well, I have my beliefs.
If I talked about my fellow man, and if I felt so callous about my fellow man as you apparently did or do, then I would be real concerned about there being a God.
People look for brand names because they know.
Up Friday night at Calb's Cove, an unbelievable crowd. And it should make it just that much easier now to tell people about Calb's Cove because there are so many more of you who are out there, hopefully, spreading the good word. What a crowd. What a good time Friday night. Thank you very, very much. And if you were one of the people that meant to come out but didn't quite get around to it, hey, Cobb's Cove's there every day of the year, except Tuesday, thank you. Cobb's Cove, a place that's almost hard to describe, because there's nothing quite like Cobb's Cove. It's intimate, it's delightful, it's classy, and yet it's also informal. Cobb's Cove, great food, great service, flambe desserts. Let me give you the address, okay? 13155 Gulf Boulevard in Madeira Beach. 13155 Gulf Boulevard, Madeira Beach. The telephone number is 393-3448. Financially.
Well, for me, yes.
So in other words, if you didn't believe, he'd punish you financially.
He can punish you in any number of ways, but he doesn't punish. He's just, he's a loving Lord.
Well, then let's see if we have this correctly. If you don't believe, you're going to go to hell. If you're just a mean, I don't believe.
I believe
you're going to go
that.
to hell, right? Okay.
I believe that.
And then while you're here on Earth, for some people who say, I don't believe, they're going to be punished with economic hardship, and others won't be punished with economic hardship.
Right.
Right. So in other words, basically like what it is that poor people who say, I don't believe, are going to go to hell, but also be punished here. And rich people who say, I don't believe, are going to be punished in hell, but not punished here.
More or less.
Thank you ever so much.
Oh, okay, bye.
You might want to flag that one, Michael. Sarasota. Sarah, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes, this is Heather, and I think I've got sort of a problem going on here. I think that there's a schism that's occurring, where God is probably not for the minimum wage, but Jesus is.
God is not for the minimum wage, but Jesus is. You might have I'm going to have to put down a half on each one here.
Because Jesus, he actually worked. God never worked. And I think Jesus was a carpenter, and he hung out with fishermen.
Yeah, that's a good point there.
And he lived in a city, and I think that he would be very partial to raising the minimum wage.
Right, and he wasn't terribly fond of, people bringing him fat lambs and that kind of stuff. When people brought him stuff, he tended to share it.
That's true.
Where God, when you brought the stuff, that he wanted all the sweet fat, and yeah, that's an interesting point you have there.
Well, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. St. Petersburg, hi there, or actually St. Petersburg Beach. Hi there, Beach, you're on the air.
I'm not sure I believe that last caller.
Rather interesting, wasn't it?
I never heard that point of view. I think you got to...
Most people never read the book. The young lady apparently has.
Well, she read it closer than any of the rest of us. I got a problem here with the question, in that there's an underlying assumption that there's a God up there that cares about these things at all, one way or the other.
Well, don't be a party pooper here, because most people say there is a God, and most people say that he's a personal God, and most people say that they know pretty much how he feels about these things, and so I just thought I'd check it out with them.
Well, if it is that kind of a God who is all-seeing and all-powerful, omniscient and omnipotent, I haven't seen any skywriting in this, up there lately saying make the minimum wage $5.45. Have you?
Well, then may I assume that you think that he isn't really interested in raising the minimum wage?
I don't think he's interested in what we do one way or the other.
But I might also point out to you that I haven't seen any skywriting saying, keep it at $3.35, except for teenagers, drop it down to $2.50.
Of course you haven't. I don't think God operates that way.
Well, why wouldn't you think that God operates that way? I mean, people find nothing at all unusual when a professional baseball player goes up to bat and asks God for a hit. People don't find it all unusual when high school football players get together and ask God for a victory.
Well, all prayers are answered. The problem is that oftentimes the answer is no. People don't understand that.
So you don't think that God is in favor of an increase in the minimum wage?
I don't think he cares one way or the other about it.
Jeez, you don't think...
Hey, we're on our own.
Okay.
All righty.
Take care. What a party pooper, huh? Whoa. Got to screen these more carefully, Michael. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Let's go to, let's see here. We'll make this my choice. The one I was going to choose, Mike. St. Petersburg. Hi there, St. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, Bob, regarding that last call, does it, I guess this is a Judeo-Christian concept of God we're dealing with here?
Well, probably, it would probably be wiser to deal with that than the Buddhist concept.
Yeah, no Allah, no Vishnu.
Right. I've got to work with what I have to work with.
Okay, understandable. And what about, taking it one step further, if there is no God, then the question is moot?
Well, we're assuming for the purpose of this conversation there is a God, and... This is not for you pseudo-intellectuals like yourself and the last caller who want to get involved in whether or not there's a God and whether or not he's a personal God. No. We do lots of shows for you pseudo-intellectuals. This is for the salt of the earth. This is for the people that bow their heads every night before they go to bed and thank God. This is for the people that join hands around the dinner table and thank God for the food. I just want to know where they think God stands on the minimum wage.
Now, do you think this might be confusing for them?
I don't see why it should be.
Well, I mean, that God intrudes into this kind of part of their behavior or part of their life.
Now, wait a second. If you're the type of person, and of course this is an editorial you.
Thank you.
If you're the type of person that thanks God for a safe trip back and forth to the supermarket, then I would think that you'd be the type of person that would think that God would get involved in things like the minimum wage and whether or not he's happy with the distribution of his wealth.
Do you think those are just questions that people, or just ways of speaking that people have to themselves? Like, boy, I'm glad I got home. Thank God. Do you think they really hold God responsible for those kind of things?
Well, it isn't really important what I think or what I don't think. That's irrelevant.
You're raising the questions. That's what's important.
Well, look, I've got a show to do. I've got 3 hours to fill. I like to fill the 3 hours with things that are mildly provocative. You can't talk about abortion and gun control every day.
That's true.
And on top of that, of course, the minimum wage is one of my favorite topics.
And we have already established where God is on those other situations, haven't we? Those other issues.
Well, no, we'll work on those a little later.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, Bob, I'll give you a call another time when I think I can contribute.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. I'm really getting distressed. The Van Ortner is not twinkling enough. This question is not going to go away. I'm going to hound you with it until at least 6 o'clock. If I'm not happy with your participation at 6 o'clock, I may ask Webb if I can have an hour of his show. I mean, it's just not going to go away. Get off your patooties and deal with this. I mean, you guys are the ones that are always running around saying, God this, thank God that. Oh, God wouldn't want me to do this. God doesn't want you to do that. God doesn't want you to have an abortion. God doesn't want you to, not have guns. Finding a new home is never an easy experience. You're out there looking around, checking floor plans, going through various 3 or 4 contacts, but beyond that, they can't do a great deal for you. The guy down at the bank, it's a pretty cut and dry situation with him. He can't really deal with too many variables. Same thing with people at the mortgage company. It's pretty cut and dry with them. And there's all of that dream just dashed because the financing can't be obtained. Hey, it doesn't have to be that way. There's something called a mortgage broker, a licensed mortgage broker. See, a licensed mortgage broker goes out and finds the money. Doesn't just have 1 or 2 sources, but dozens, scores, oodles and oodles of sources. And can deal with problems like bankruptcy, or slow pay, or no previous credit. Town & Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation is just such a licensed mortgage broker. First and second mortgages, low rates, fast service, terms to fit your needs. Approval time, usually 24 to 48 hours in most cases. Town & Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation. Allow me to give you the telephone number. 264-2648. 264-2648. Town & Country Mortgage and Investment. St. Petersburg. Hi there, St. You're on the air at 970 WFLA. Where do you think God stands on this?
Hi, Bob?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Where does God stand on this? I think it kind of falls in between, I don't know. The more I think about it, I read this book once, all right? It was called something about the Kid of the King. It talked about God. Lots of things about God, all right? And he said, I'll go ahead. He was talking about this one guy who was, supposedly in with God. This guy talked to God now, okay? You figure this one out. He talked to God, and God said, hey, I'm going to, make sure you make lots of money, but make sure you give me 10%. So if, all these Roman Catholic people out there, it's like the largest religion that we know in Christianity, if they all started making, more money,
well, in the long run, God would be making more money because these people give 10%, right? So let's see, an increase of, 15% over the minimum wage would mean probably an increase of about 20% for God. So, you have to look at it that way. Financially, hey, God's going to do a pretty good thing, So I'm sure he's for it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wait, I got more to say. Kids cut me off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Bob.
Actually, yes, I can cut you off. Let's try, let's see here. We'll make this, Ellington. Hi, Ellington. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, when God made the world, he wasn't thinking about wages and so forth for everybody.
Are you serious?
He did say that the poor you will always have with you.
Are you serious? He didn't envision wages?
No, he didn't envision that at all.
Wages were kind of a surprise to him?
He said that the poor will always be with you, and you'll have to take care of the poor. But he did not talk about wages.
Well, then he must have given some thought to it, though, because you couldn't have poor if you didn't have wealth. And
yeah,
you couldn't have wealth
but if you were to distribute the wealth all around, you wouldn't have any poor anymore. You see, and that's how he wants.
So God is real happy then with the distribution of his wealth.
Yeah.
God likes, some people earning $550, $600 million a year, and other people earning.
That's the way he made the world.
Other people earning $2,000, $3,000 a year. Well, gee, why do you think he does it that way?
Well, I think God wanted to diversify. He wanted all types of people.
Oh.
Poor, rich.
Poor, rich.
And whatever.
Why do you think he needed poor and rich people? Why couldn't he just be happy with middle-class people, where, nobody had to suffer?
Well, that wasn't the way he wanted it. He wanted people to suffer.
He wanted to suffer.
Then he wanted to save them afterwards.
Suffer now so he could save them later.
After that, he would save them.
Oh, what a beautiful plan that is. So let me see if I get this correct. He wanted people to suffer. He wanted their children to suffer. He wanted their grandchildren to suffer.
Don't you think that's true? Everybody's suffering.
So that he could save them later.
That's right.
In other words, save them from himself.
Even the rich people suffer.
What's he saving them from? Himself?
He's saving... That was big idea in this world.
Yeah, so in other words, he set these people up deliberately to suffer so that he could save them, so he's saving them from himself.
So he could save them and have them all up in heaven with them.
Of course, had he not made them suffer, then he wouldn't have had to save them.
That's true. So the whole thing is quite complex.
Yeah. Quite complex?
Quite complex.
So again, let me
He's the only one that knows why he's doing all this.
If I understand this, these people are supposed to be grateful for being saved from the suffering that he put them in.
That's right.
And so
You're supposed to be able to take it. He made you with brain, and he made you with pain and whatever.
And some people he gave a lot of money to that didn't have to suffer.
But they're still not happy with all the money.
But these people who are not suffering, they're going to be saved too.
Oh, they're suffering, all right. They have their own ways of suffering.
I mean, how do you think...
They can overspend, and that's really a very bad thing for them. They think that's the end of the world. When
you mean not knowing, where to put your money, that's whether to buy a CD for 6 months or a CD for 9 months.
Very aggravating
for
suffering.
Some people. Yeah, it's very aggravating. It's not quite as aggravating, I suppose, as not having enough food to feed your children.
Well, that might be, but what you don't have, you really don't miss either.
What you don't have, you really don't miss. Well, that kind of depends. If you don't have shoes, you miss them.
When you're never walking on gravel. You don't.
Well, sure, when you're walking on a gravel road, you miss them.
You're used to it. Your feet are conditioned to it.
If you don't have enough food to eat, you kind of miss that.
Yeah, I know. That's a bad part of it. But like I say, if you don't have it, you don't miss it.
Okay,
parts of this world where there's nothing, that people have nothing, and they're used to it.
So just to wrap this up now, I want to make sure I really understand this. God's opposed to the minimum wage because he wants people to suffer so that he can save them.
God was never opposed to minimum wages. He never even thought about that.
Well, how could there possibly be something that God hadn't thought about if God is responsible for all
Because a lot of the things that the people have cooked up amongst themselves...
Well, then God would have had to have known about it beforehand,
thought about it one time or another, but he didn't take care of all these little tiny things that come up in this world.
Wait a second. He makes every flake of sand or every flake of snow, every grain of sand.
But he also gave you brains
he never bothered to think about the minimum wage?
No, he gave you brains to think about things yourself,
Well, which would you rather he do? Spend a lot of time designing grains of sand or think a little bit about the minimum wage?
Oh, I don't know. Minimum wage is a very difficult thing to bring up because it has so much to do with the economy in this world. I don't think that he had much to do with that.
God had nothing to do with the economy?
Pardon me?
God had nothing to do with the economy?
Probably did, but he figured the people would figure out these things themselves.
What the hell does he spend his time doing? Just designing sand or getting involved in the economy and the minimum wage? What's he doing? Do you think?
I don't, to tell you the truth, the whole thing is quite complex.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Flag that baby, Mikey. I would be in favor of the minimum wage. 4.5 people who say that God would be opposed to an increase in the minimum wage. Zephyr Hills. Hi, Zeph. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, Bob?
Yeah.
Is it okay to call you Bob?
Sure.
Huh?
Sure.
Well, listen, please don't hang up on me. Let me tell you, I haven't got a long story. I've been listening to you for ages. You remember, can I talk to you just a second about, you remember when you was giving all that money away, $10,000 and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, years ago. Well, you know what?
$50,000 giveaway, right.
My name's May. M-A-Y.
Uh-huh.
But I spelled M-A, but it's M-A-Y. But anyway, I live by myself, old lady, 80 years old. And you don't have to hold that against me because I'm old. But anyway, I was laying in bed and I always put the radio on. And I woke up one night and I heard this voice, and some man was giving away boats, and he was giving away $10,000 and $10 million way up. And I said, what's going on here? And you know what, Bob? You know what I did? I started laughing. And I said, and I listened to some of the people that was calling in. They wanted that money right. They'd be there in the morning for it, you know.
Yeah, some of them were.
And I said, what's going on here? I said, those people know that radio station. They don't. No radio station has that kind of money that they can put out $10,000 to everybody.
Not
and
even
I think it's
WTMP.
got up higher. And I thought, well, what do you know, Bob, I hate to say this. I'm an old lady, and I ain't got much more time on earth. But I tell you, I don't know what's got into us people. I'll put myself into it, too. You know, we're dumb, or sometimes you're pretty smart, man. What's with us?
I don't know, but it sounds to me like you're a pretty sharp young woman there.
Well, at 80?
No matter what the numbers
you ain't very sharp at 80, Bob. You're only 43 or 42 or something like that. But you ain't very sharp when you're 80. But what I'm saying, please, if you could just, it'll help the other people, too, my call, because I can't call every day. I can't hardly get to the telephone. Got a bum leg. But listen, maybe you could explain, in just a couple sentences or something, what's wrong with us? I ain't talking about church people or anything like that. Everybody goes to church on Sunday and Sunday school. I ain't even I go myself when I can get out.
Well, you see, I'm just not sharp enough. I'm not good enough to be able to explain to you what's wrong with people. So what I try my darndest to do is I try to show you what's wrong with us every day.
Well, now listen, I don't always agree with everybody that says anything on TV or anybody says anything personally. You know what I mean? But there's something wrong with us. What is it?
I don't know.
Oh, you do know, Bob, because you know you're a well-educated man and you know things.
Well, I just do my best to try to help you see what's wrong with us. I can't put it into words.
Oh, well, I try to live right, you know, and I can't say that. Now, this minimum wage, you know more about that than I do. When I went to work right after I got out of high school, I graduated, had to go to work. I got $25 a week. There was no salary for every hour. It was just $25 a week. I worked at that hardware shop, as crippled as I was. I had polio, and I'm very crippled. But anyway, I worked at that hardware shop for $25 a week because I needed it. And I said, oh, I'm glad I got it. And that was Jewish people. Now, I don't have anything against the Jews, and I'm not Jewish. I don't know what I am. But anyway, the next pay I got, next time, I got paid every week. And the next payday, I got $35. And I didn't ask for any raise or anything. But I worked hard. I worked damn hard. I'm going to say damn, because I worked damn hard. And I kept on. And I worked there until I got married. But I wish you would just think that maybe you could have a whole subject on that one day. Just what has got into us. Now, I'm not talking about going, as you say, joining a church and saying, Lord, this and send me that. Some people say, oh, I don't have a thing to eat, but there'll be a basket of groceries on my doorstep in the morning, and all such stuff as that. Now, what the Lord did, He gave 10 I forgot what to call it. We'll say, like 10, one person got 10 cents. It wouldn't be 10 cents then, but 10 something. And then it went up to 10. The next person got 10. And he told them to use that the way they could. Well, the one that got the one, we'll say 1 penny. That wasn't what it was called in Bible time. But anyway, the one that got the 1 penny, he buried it. And when the Lord called them to tell what they'd done with the money, everybody went out and worked, did something, and made a little bit more money. But this one guy, he didn't get anything because he had buried his penny, whatever it was. You'll probably know the word for it. I don't. But anyway, what happened? He had buried his, and he didn't have anything turned in.
Thank you very much. We'll have to double-check that story, see exactly what the story was there. Welcome back there, fun seekers. 12 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock. It is a Monday, May the 1st, 1989. If you're just kind of maybe cruising through the area, listening for the first time, I'm Lassiter. My friends call me Mad Dog. I can't begin to imagine why. And we try to come in here in the afternoon and ask our friends and neighbors in the Bay Area questions that are designed to provoke and to, well, for some of them to keep them awake, for others to give them something to do in between trips to that's neither here nor there. And today we are simply dealing with an issue. You see, this is a very religious area. It's an area where an awful lot of Christians live, an awful lot of people who know about God and who know how God feels on things. And it's also, somewhat of a politically conservative area. And we try to keep the show as topical as we possibly can, keeping in mind who the audience is. So we will ask questions and do things on this program that maybe, they don't do back there in Detroit or in Cincinnati or wherever it is that you're heading back to. And that might kind of explain why you're dealing with a show asking, would God be in favor of the minimum wage? I personally think that back in Detroit and Cincinnati, they should ask questions like that, and they probably have a hell of a lot more interesting radio if they did. Almost as interesting as we have here. But we've chatted with a number of people, and so far, the score is 4 1/2 people say yes, God would be in favor of an increase in the minimum wage, and 4 1/2 people say no, God would not be in favor of the minimum wage. And in case you're wondering about the half vote, that came in from a young woman who raised a very valid point. She was speaking in terms of the Trinity, and she said, the dual God, the Father, Son God, actually, she never really did mention the Trinity. I guess it's kind of silly to have a bird vote. But she said that God the Father would probably be opposed to it, and God the Son would be in favor of it. And I think she made a pretty strong argument, strong enough that we did something we don't normally do, and that is we split the vote. Gave half on one side of the sheet and half on the other. Actually, we're doing something that we don't normally do, and even keeping score here. Normally we just pretend as though we're doing so. 990-9352 in Hillsborough. There are 2 lines open in Hillsborough. 990-WFLA. In Pinellas, 461... Well, you think I always kept score? Why? I mean, who cares? It's totally unscientific. But today, I just thought it would be interesting. Where were we? Yes, we were in the middle of the Pinellas lines. 990... No, that's Hillsborough. 461, yes, 461-9352, 461-WFLA would be the number in Pinellas. And from there, we'll just take off and take calls. Hi there, Tampa. You are on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going...
Bob.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
I was just going through the radio stations, and I came across your program by accident a couple of callers ago.
Yeah.
And there was
It's amazing how many people say they come across my show by accident. It really is.
Well, I was changing stations, and I heard this one caller. It was 2 callers ago, and she was talking about how God made us to suffer.
Yeah.
And I would just like to say that the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says that He made us to praise Him and to love Him. And all the problems started when okay, we're under the assumption that there is a God, okay? And the Bible says that Adam and Eve disobeyed God when they ate of the fruit, okay? And that is when sin entered into the world. And sin is the problem. God is not the problem, okay? And you can't blame God for the suffering of the people because it was by one man's choice that sin entered into the world. Now, she mentioned something about the poor people.
Well, except we're talking about would God be in favor of the minimum wage?
Right, I know, but I just wanted to respond to what she said, okay? the Christians are supposed to be feeding the poor people, okay? It's the Christians that are supposed to be. I didn't like it when she was blaming everything on God, because it's not God's fault. God didn't make us for that purpose. We choose to do the things that we do.
But would God be in favor of an increase in the
minimum
wage?
I don't really want to answer that, because I wasn't interested.
And you're gone, Bimbo. What do you mean you don't really want to answer that? Just kind of passing through today and just thought you would call up and, babble in my ear for 5 minutes about your own particular bizarre view of God, and you don't even want to answer the question on my show? Whoa! Hey, lady, keep sampling, Top of that, you're lying through your teeth. You're out there every afternoon. You know it, you old bag. 990-9352 in Hillsboro, 461-9352 in Pinellas. 4 calls drop off during the course of this woman. So, in other words, we're back now down to a rather pathetic Van Ortner and a damn legitimate question. Of course, there's also the other half of the question: would God be happy with the distribution of his wealth in this nation? Well, again, I totally understand you're cringing behind the curtains on that one. But that's okay. I've got time. I've got lots of time from now until 6 o'clock. I'll wait. I mean, really what it boils down to is you guys make me so angry. Oh, thank God, I just found a parking space out there. You see, you'll bring God into the most trivial things. Oh, thank God, I found the shoes to go with that new dress. As though God really put those shoes there to go with your new dress. Wait a second. Hey, Gabriel, stop designing those grains of sand. Come over here. We got to put some shoes on the shelf. She's coming down the street. Come on, Gabriel. She's going to be there real soon. Now, if he goes to that much trouble, I think he's probably sitting up. Gabriel, what do you think? I know we haven't given him a raise since 1980. Cost of living's gone up down there a lot, I don't know, like a $435, $440, $440. Yeah, geez, I don't know. What do you think, Gabriel? And since you guys seem to know how God feels about virtually everything, and precisely where God stands on major issues, such as whether or not you should vote Republican or Democratic, conservative or liberal. Well, Gabriel, I've been with the Democrats now for a lot of years. I should be nonpartisan. Pass the word. You want to please me, vote Republican. So if God can get involved in that, and Lord knows all of the Christians tell me that he does, well, we're talking now that the new definition of Christian. There was the old definition of Christian, then the new definition. Well, the new definition of that's new religion. Neo-Christianity. They tell me that God, even passes on who you should vote for, so I should think they would also get involved in some of these economic matters, like whether or not God is in favor of an increase in the minimum wage. I've given you the telephone numbers. It's about the best I can do, and from this point on, I'm just going to sit back and wait. Oh, what a way to start on Monday. Hey, Stereo, do you think God's in favor of traffic reports? Well.
Hi, Bob.
If it isn't Gary McHenry's song.
God's going to punish you, Bob.
Gary, did you have a good weekend?
God's going to punish you, Bob.
How's that, Gary?
I went to the Friday night get-together at Calps Cove. I went to the address in Sefner that you gave me. There is no Calps Cove there, Bob.
Oh, no, did we give you the wrong address, Gary, baby?
I wrote it down, Bob, just the way you gave it to me on...
Gary, I thought you saw the tongue in my cheek.
No, I couldn't tell. Your cheeks are always kind of puffy. We have a couple of problems earlier in traffic.
You got a hell of a lot more in the way of problems than you expect.
Like on the Howard Franklin Bridge, east and westbound getting back to normal. Westbound, there had been a slow mover, but that has made it off the bridge. 55th Street North and 102nd Avenue, some wires down at that point.
Slow mover.
Dangling traffic lights.
Somebody pushing off the bridge.
Fowler and 22nd Street
dangling
in Tampa.
Traffic light.
That's right. The traffic light is dangling there, and they
They don't want that to dangle onto a car's hood. Dale Mabry and Gandy, 8200 Black and North Dale Mabry, that's around Waters. And one accident which they've called for traffic control for. The windblown police will be out waving their arms at Linebaugh and 14th Street to the east of Nebraska. Be prepared for a bit of a delay there. And I'm Gary McHenry, somewhere in the wind over Tampa, 970 WFLA.
I just know there little old ladies calling the switchboard right now.
Traffic.
30 traffic reports, 30 traffic reports, get off there.
Every month, nearly half of America comes to Kmart. Now, if you're...
Value. Well, for the last week or so, I've been telling you about Woodridge. Well, Woodridge is a place that fits all of those questions, or fills all of those questions perfectly. The lower taxes, the lower impact fees, even your car insurance would go down if you moved to Woodridge. But there are other things, too, to keep in mind. We're talking here about a dream house. Okay, the home sites are fantastic. The magnificent, monstrous live oak trees and the Spanish moss and the birds and the quiet. But what about that dream house? See, that's one of the delightful things with Woodridge. 3 different builders and the developer to work along with you in coordinating your dream house. You want to move the bathroom over here 3 feet? Hey, no problem. You don't have to live with somebody else's dream house. No, this is your dream house. It's all right there, waiting for you at Woodridge. Woodridge is located on Livingston Avenue, about a half a mile north of County Line Road. Let me give you the telephone number that'll put you directly in touch with the developer. Directly in touch with the developer, okay? Here it is. 960-2707. 960-2707. Prices start at about $120,000, including for me to do. 990-9352, 990-WFLA. Least you forget, we can take it even a step further. Would God be happy with the distribution of his wealth in this country today? And that seems to be one that most people would love to just stay away from. Clearwater, hi, Clear. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah. This Bob?
Yes, sir.
This Lassiter, right? You on WFLA?
Yes, sir.
Hey, listen, you were asking a question about what God should have a minimum wage?
No, that's not at all what I said, sir.
Well, I don't think he should.
It said, would God be in favor of a minimum wage?
Well, same thing. I mean, what's the difference, right? It's the same thing. But he wouldn't have a minimum wage.
Why not, sir?
Because if he did, them big fat pigs like you would make money. Well, he couldn't have that.
Sir, I make a lot of money, and you're the one that sounds to me to be a little bit closer to the minimum wage than I. Clearwater, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. Hello, Clear.
Hello.
Yeah.
What can I say?
I wouldn't have the vaguest idea, sir, but I will give you about 3 seconds to start saying it.
Well, and regarding this minimum wage, this is a tough situation because everybody...
Shouldn't be for God, sir. Is God in favor of the minimum wage or not?
God has nothing to do with the minimum wage. This is a personal thing, and I think that a lot of the teenagers and whoever working for the minimum wage...
Sir, do you believe in God?
Yes, I do.
Well, then God would have to have something to do with it, wouldn't
he? Indirectly, but...
What do you mean indirectly?
That depends on your...
So the question is not whether or not you want to write a minimum wage. I couldn't care less about you, but I am very interested in what God would want, sir. So what do you think God would want in the way of a minimum wage?
No, I don't think so. I think that it's on personal worth.
So you don't think God is in favor of an increase in the minimum wage?
No, I don't think so.
Why do you think he's opposed to it?
Because I've been religious for 71 years, and I always felt that whatever the going wage was for whatever I was worth was sufficient. And even if I
so in other words, if somebody wanted to pay you a nickel an hour, that was sufficient.
Well, if he felt that I was worth the extra nickel, it was okay by me.
So in other words,
but I never asked for a raise.
Well, sir, let's see if we can't understand here exactly what it is that we're saying. God has no problem with people who are rich and powerful dumping on people who are poor and have no power by paying them whatever they feel like paying them. God is not in favor of a living wage.
Well, this is a real problem because everybody thinks that they're worth more, and they think that God might feel the same way about them. But that's a personal feeling on their part. And
but what does that say, sir? What are you saying?
I'm saying that whenever anybody is looking for an increase in wages, they must produce to compensate for the increase, or they're going to add it.
Unless they're already being paid less than they're worth.
No, from what I see here in Florida, a lot of these teenagers aren't even worth $3 an hour.
Really?
Really.
You kind of really dislike the younger people, don't you?
Pardon?
You really dislike the younger people, don't you?
No, I don't. I mean,
right.
I see these kids with...
Sir, you're talking about human beings when you say they're not even worth $3 an hour. You see,
well,
sir,
they're not producing. They're not working.
Excuse me, sir. I was in the middle of a sentence.
If you pay somebody $3...
Excuse me, sir. I was in the middle of a sentence. Didn't your mama raise you up right?
Right.
Like I was saying, sir, I don't remember there being 2 cash registers at the store, one saying people worth over $3 an hour, one for people worth under $3 an hour. Like I said, sir, you don't really like people. It's probably because you're kind of old and grumpy right now and feeling a little bit bad about it. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News Desk.
970 WFLA News at 4:30.
Thank you, Donald. 4:37 the time. Sitting here just leafing through the manual, and darned, I can't really find anything in here where it says that Jesus used to put a price on people's heads. You know, things like, he's not even worth $3 an hour. Can't find that anywhere. Lutz, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Afternoon.
Okay. I think that God would be completely in favor of the minimum wage and an increase in the minimum wage.
Why?
And, well, regardless, the last time I checked in any type of holy book, and I've done a lot of comparative religious studies, there were some tenets set down that all men should be able to live in, and I use men in a generic sense, in a minimal of self-dignity, have a feeling of self-worth, and have the basic necessities to, if not lead a luxurious life, at least one of comfort. And when you sit and look at a lot of the people and how they have to live, there's no way that these are being followed. And something else that was put down is that it's incumbent upon those who have to go out of their way to help those who don't have. And that's not being done. God would be extremely upset with the distribution of wealth.
Well, from my reading of the Sermon on the Mount, that's the way I'd see it.
That is a basic tenet of all major religions, and I don't care if they go from Christianity to Zoroastrianism and everything in between. That is a tenet of all basic religions, and it just would seem to me that there's a whole lot of what I call bottom line people who are going to have a serious surprise when they get to heaven.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that God would favor the Senate version or the administration's version of the minimum wage bill?
I honestly think you probably favored the Senate version because it is a more compassionate bill. It seems to be the one that is, if I can borrow a phrase from I'm not sure where, a kinder, gentler type of bill that does try to restore a modicum of dignity, because I can tell you there's a lot of guys that aren't making minimum wage, but you go in and talk to your average, just to use one place in as an example, go in and talk to your average Kmart employee and see how much over $4.25 an hour they're making for their 40 hours a week.
Now, you do understand, of course, that this initial legislation came from Senator Edward Kennedy.
Oh, my gosh.
Do you think that God has any problem with that?
No, I don't think he does. I think any transgressions that Senator Kennedy might have committed against God will be dealt with in and on of his own good time. And I don't think he really cares who the legislation comes from, or would care who the legislation came from, if he felt like it was in, the person's heart was in the right place.
All right, thanks much.
Bye, Bob.
Take care. Standing by
risking life and limb.
Adonis, risking life and limb. Gary McHenry, the dangerous WFLA airborne traffic reporter.
Charismatic.
With a charismatic
traffic
minimum traffic report.
With looks to make your knees freeze.
With looks to make you get off the bar stool and move right down the other end.
Move to a booth in the back. Traffic right now at Linebaugh 14th Street.
Minimum wage, or even the proposed minimum wage, because I think it's paramount keeping people in slavery. My trade, which is mechanical, air conditioning, electrical,
the only way you can ever get ahead is by buying tools out of your own pocket. When you get laborers in there and you pay them at minimum wage, they can never get ahead enough to get ahead to get more money. So it's just keeping the class system down there, and people get disillusioned, and I don't think God would like that.
You don't think God would like that? So, but the alternative is no minimum wage.
No, well, the alternative is a decent minimum wage. I don't even think this new minimum wage, by the time it's in full effect, that's going to be well below the cost of living. You know, I mean, those raises coming through are just basically cost of living raises. You know, somebody right now today, anybody making under $200 a week for a 40-hour week, they can't hardly live. You know, I mean, how are they supposed to raise a family or anything? They'll never be able to get ahead.
So God would be at least minimally in favor of increasing the minimum wage.
I think he'd be greatly in favor of increasing the minimum wage. I think this whole standard of payroll is making the class system that much more apart. You know, the rich people, they get more than a 5% increase every year. You know, I mean, you know, I can't see where just because somebody's not educated but doing a good job where they should get $4.65 an hour. I mean, you know, there's a line somewhere where you have to prove yourself, but give these people a chance to get ahead to prove themselves. If you keep them under the gun where they can't buy the equipment to do the work, how are they supposed to get ahead in life?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, seems reasonable to me. One line available in each county, 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. By the way, for those of you, again, keeping score, but who don't have paper and pencil, it is now a tie again. It's 6.5 say yes, God would be in favor of it. 6.5 people say no way, Jose, would God want an increase in the minimum wage. Let's go to Madeira Beach. Hi there, Madeira. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
The Mad Dog. How you doing, buddy? Long time no talk to. Listen, in the Bible, did you ever read it?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay. You remember that little ditty that when Jesus pulled a coin out of his pocket there and said, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's?
Right, he was talking to us.
Well, that's true, but you could spread it out to the total picture.
You didn't really believe I read it, did you?
No, I believed it. But anyway, I think I think you have to make it on your own. I think, for example, if Lassiter was drowning in the ocean and you were going down for the third time and said, please, God, help me, I think God would give you a hand up there, but I don't think that God is going to look at your checkbook and make sure it's balanced for you or your job and make sure that you're making enough money. I think you have to take a personal initiative and do it on your own.
Now, wait a second. You see, a lot of good Christians would tell you, especially like those who are in business for themselves, will say things like, God has blessed my business.
Well, I happen to be
So in other words, God has sent me customers.
Right. I happen to be in business for myself.
Well, if God can bless, people who own their own businesses, why can't he bless people that work for people?
God helps those who help themselves. In other words, I've put out plenty of sweaty days, and as I'm sure everybody has that listens to your audience in one way or another, and work hard and stuff like that.
Well, God hasn't blessed a lot of people with abilities beyond labor.
Well, as I say, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to God the things that are God's.
And if God wants to bless your business, that's cool.
I don't believe that we, as mortal human beings, see the whole picture. I think you have to buckle up. You have to sweat a little. You have to use your own initiative.
Now, wait a second. It's often said that God works in mysterious ways. You've heard that, haven't you?
Yeah, somewhere. I think you said
And if God wanted to bless people, instead of just, let's say there was a family that wasn't doing too well, and if God wanted to bless them instead of just, for example, making some bread appear on their counter overnight, a loaf of bread, not hip talk for money bread. Wouldn't you think that God would work in some mysterious way to increase their wages instead of having them come down every morning and say, "Whoa! Another loaf of bread there, Marge."
Well, maybe he does.
Where that came from?
Hey, maybe he does. Maybe you ought to ask that portion of your audience that. Let me tell you, my wife was married before she married me, and she raised some kids on her own, and she had some hard times because the husband left her with nothing, and she just had to really.
God sent you to her.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. one night...
Well, make it quick, because I've got like a half a minute here.
But one night she went to bed, had no money for the electric bill.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning she looked around, and electric bills were a lot cheaper then. Found $25 in the dresser drawer that she didn't know that she had, and
Whoa, that sounds
paid
like a miracle to me.
Well, that's true. God works in mysterious ways. We can't factor it up.
Or else your ex-wife or your current wife is in the habit of misplacing money, which happens to a lot of us, too. Off we go to Don Richards at the WFLA News Desk. Don, hold.
Severe thunderstorm.
Newport Richie. Hi there, New. Where do you think God stands on this minimum wage question?
Hi. I consider that God would have kind of a sense of humor and would be against any minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
Thereby, if you're an employer and you can get people to work for you for $1 an hour, all the more power to you.
Mm-hmm.
As for...
So God favors the wealthy and the powerful.
Well, I would say that God is happy with the way his wealth is distributed for the simple reason is those who have it somehow found a way to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the people that don't have it, well, they're either too lazy or too stupid to figure out their way to get it.
So God makes a lot of lazy, stupid people.
I didn't say that. If everybody who believes in God thinks they have a free will, then it is their choice whether they are stupid and lazy.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's how I feel.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's see. That makes it 6.5 yes, 8.5 no. 9, oh, my God, drop-offs all over the place. I don't understand. I'd better quickly give out the telephone numbers. Whoa. Trying to give me heart failure there, Michael. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Carolwood. Hi, Carol. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, Moose. How you doing?
Fine.
Let me preface what I'm about to say by saying that I've had many conversations with my dad about this. A lot of it's stemming from listening to your program. He's an ultra-right-wing fanatical fundamentalist, and he hates your guts. I hope he's not listening. But anyway, my reading... Excuse me?
I was just saying hi, Dad, if you are listening.
Hey, all right. My reading and my interpretation of the New Testament, because I think the Old Testament is a bit beyond reason. But the New Testament...
what the guy who stars in the New Testament said.
Right. Well, I think it was all kind of written as I don't believe it was inspired, but this guy Jesus that they write about, if he ever did live, I think he would have to be the ultimate of socialist. I think he would have to be either a socialist or a true communist in the truest sense of the word. And I think that he would have nothing but ill regard for the capitalist society that we live in today, starting from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion.
So I would assume, therefore, then you would think that God would be in favor of an increase in the minimum wage.
Yeah, under the circumstances that we're living under, I think that he would have to say disperse it as evenly as possibly can, and don't take unfair advantage of those that aren't quite as capable of getting out and grubbing for the bucks as some others. So I'd have to go on that spot.
Okay, thank you much.
Thanks, Moose.
Take care. Off it is now to Clearwater. Hi there, Clear. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Mr. Lassiter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think my personal belief is that God would be in favor of the minimum wage, and the full minimum wage, not the sub-minimum for the younger people that is being pushed by the Bush administration. The full minimum wage. And when Mr. Bush comes out today for a reduction in the capital gains tax, and yet he's not going to go along with what some people in Congress would like to propose for the full increase in the minimum wage, I feel this is ludicrous.
Isn't it absolutely amazing? Because in essence what Bush is saying is that if we lower the taxes for the wealthy and they can make more on their investments, that will encourage them to risk more. And in essence, I would think that using the same kind of logic, if you were to make it possible to earn more for your labors in this country, that should make you want to work more.
Exactly. And may I make one other comment? And I hope, I'll do this hurriedly, I hope you take this in a very nice sense, because I'm not meaning to put you down, but the topic of this question is ludicrous. It should be what we believe, not what God believes. I'm a deist, and nobody can tell you what God believes.
Sir, I beg your pardon. I don't give a damn what your religion is. That is irrelevant.
But how can you
sir,
ask us to...
shut up. you can ask a question such as this when you're dealing with people who give God credit for the most simplistic things in their lives. So I should think for people that would thank God for a parking space, they might believe that God would have an interest in the minimum wage. And, you know, whether you're a deist or a theist or whatever you may be, you know, you're just a pseudo-intellectual fella. I can't deal here with pseudo-intellectuals. I got to deal with the salt of the earth. Salt of the earth says, hey, God provides my food, God provides this, God does that, God favors me here, God favors me there. So I should think that God would have a direct interest in the minimum wage, too. Pseudo-intellectuals. Oh, jeez. That God had, sat down and thought about it and said, well, I've gave these Democrats all this time, gave them all those elections. No, vote Republican. You want to be on God's side, vote Republican. So God must have a position on the minimum wage. It's not that bizarre. Now, of course, you could take it down to really splitting hairs. If he is in favor of the minimum wage, is he in favor of the Senate version? Is he in favor of the administration's version? Or there's something else we haven't explored at all. Does he have his own version? You know, maybe something like $5 an hour right off the bat without any training wage. I mean, could God possibly be that generous? Well, then when you really sit down and stop to think about it, God is generous. You know, God gives you this. God blesses you with that. Do you really think a big guy like God's going to quibble over a few pennies or even a few dollars? I mean, hey, what's a buck to God? And everybody knows you can barely live on $5 an hour as a problem. You know, maybe God would be in favor of a $9 an hour minimum wage. I mean, he's a very generous guy. I mean, look what he did for the children of Israel. Yeah, and gave them all that land. Hey, you're my children. Here, have some land. Made their sheep multiply. Did all kinds of neat things for them. And now everybody's saying, well, children of Israel really disappointed God, so God has kind of, adopted America. There are an awful lot of people in America, that don't have sheep or land, just minimum wage jobs. As a matter of fact, even Ronald Reagan last year said there are millions and millions and millions of these people. He was talking about, that don't have to pay taxes, and he said there were millions and millions of them. So even Ronald Reagan says that there's a God, and it's, he's a nice God, he's a generous God, he's a loving God, so it's not quite as bizarre as you think. So like I said, stop trying to adjust your damned radio and just go along with me, okay? 990-9352 in Hillsborough, one line open. 461-9352 in Pinellas, same story. One line open. Hi, Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Bob?
Yeah.
Yes, I've listened to you many times, but I'm a first-time caller. Let me just say this, you're a great talk show host. You got the voice for it and everything. Now, God is in favor of the minimum wage.
Okay, which version do you think he's in favor
God
of?
is a capitalist. He believes in the capitalist way. In fact, he sent his only son down as a payment for our sins.
I'm afraid you didn't read the book, the second half of the book. God the Father is probably a real hardline free market capitalist, but God the Son.
Are you talking about Jesus now?
Yeah, he appears to be a little bit on the left side of the spectrum. I don't want to call him any names or anything. I'm not going to say he's commie like some people do, but there are some definite indications that he's a socialist.
Well, let's look at socialists and the capitalists. Now, all the capitalist countries that take up the Judeo-Christian, they're doing pretty good. In fact, you see people coming from the socialist countries that...
You mean like Mexico is doing pretty good?
Huh?
Do you mean like Mexico is doing pretty good?
Mexico is not doing very good at all.
Or like maybe Argentina is doing real good?
I tell you what, how many people do you see
Brazil?
coming from atheistic countries and boats to the United States? You see a lot from Cuba, Russia, everybody wants to defect.
Whoa, sir. There's not an atheistic country around here.
There's not?
No, sir.
The communist countries.
The Catholic Church is alive and well in Cuba. The Catholic Church is alive and well in Nicaragua. As a matter of fact, they just about a year and a half or so ago, sir, they got a new cardinal.
That's not an atheistic country.
Well, I thought the communists were known for being godless and atheistic.
No,
what I'm saying, all right. Okay, let's take...
Sir.
Okay.
The church is alive and well in Russia. The church is alive and well. Sir, do you realize there are crucifixes in the schoolrooms in Poland? Did you know that?
No, I've never been there. No.
Well, there are, sir. It's a lot of those God-fearing countries that are having terrible economic problems.
Well,
right
what
now.
about the political structure? It seems like the capitalists have adopted ideology and theology of Jesus Christ, and it seems like these countries are prospering, and I don't see Americans getting votes going to these other countries.
Brazil, Argentina, Mexico.
Who do you see
Bolivia,
going to those
Peru,
countries? You see those people coming here. You see those people coming here. Okay?
Yes, sir, because they've been fed a lot of crap. Those people are coming here with the very same images of America that my grandfather came here with. They truly believe the streets are paved in gold.
Okay, even the minimum wage, the person here, the poorest person here.
You see, sir, the U.S. Information Agency in these various different countries, they never put out the actual truth. They just paint these incredible pictures when they're trying to talk people out of communism, of wealth and easy times and movie stars, and everybody's got a big car and a large-breasted woman and money falling out of their mouths. That's one of the reasons, sir, that we have so many of these refugees coming here, and they are usually stunned. They're absolutely shocked. As a matter of fact, there was a great story not terribly long ago on the nightly news about some refugees from Nicaragua. When they were given their housing in Miami, they said, "Are you serious? We're not going to stay in this crap." Because it was far worse than what they had left, sir.
Well, I've worked with some people that have come over from other countries, and they find even working for a minimum wage or whatever, they're better off here than being in the country there. The poorest person here is probably better off tonight.
Sometimes they are, sir, but where's God stand on the minimum wage?
He stands for it.
He is in favor of it.
He believes in a minimum wage.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Well.
South of Park Boulevard, Seminole, south of Park. Also the 5100 block of Ulmerton Road. Accident at that spot, also just about out of the way. I'm sorry, McHenry's entering 3 traffic.
Oh, really, Gar?
Well, that was weird.
Gar.
Oh, boy.
Yo, Gar.
Yeah, one station at a time, huh? You're Mr. Maseko. To me early.
Gar,
my other obligations.
Gary, you actually talked to another station? You mean you're not mine exclusively?
I'm a big star, Bob.
How many people do you do this with, Gary? I thought it was just. It was just you and me, Gary.
There's Channel 8. Let's see. I do the Eckert's intercom system. Well, quite a few, Bob. I'm a big star. In Big Band. We have a couple of problems in traffic.
You promised me, Gary. It was just you and me, baby. You put your arm around me and you said, "Hey, it's just you and me."
That was late at night, Bob.
Well, yes, we had been. Gary McHenry, the world's most
dangerous.
The world's
most in demand. Most in demand.
Yeah, the loosest traffic reporter we could find.
I'll do it for anybody.
Gary. Yeah, right. I know you. That's what you said the other night when you walked in the bar and the place cleared out. I didn't know precisely how to fight off the temptation until I ran into Dr. Robert Sobel. People at the house even knew his name. And the program that he calls Quit for Life. Well, let me give you the telephone number. Because maybe you're not quite strong enough. Maybe you've quit and have gone back and you're disappointed and you're afraid to try to quit again. Hey, nobody's into failure. 787-5530. 787-5530. Dr. Sobel's program consists of 2 one-hour sessions, 1 week apart, a total cost of $39.50. There are no gimmicks, there are no gags. I mean, he's not going to try to put you into a trance or staple your ear to the wall. He's just going to talk sense to you. And when he's finished, you're going to be a non-smoker. I am. Back to the phones we go again. Tampa. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Well, I just tuned in, I guess it was about 30 minutes ago, so I didn't hear the way you opened the show, but I think I have the idea of what the question is.
Right, is God in favor of the minimum wage?
Well, the way I see it, of course, we have to stipulate, which God we're talking about, and I presume that we're talking about the God of the Old Testament.
No, just the God of most people in this country.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what that God is, but in my understanding of biblical teachings, which is minimal, but I mean academic, there was originally there was this God that they spoke about in the Old Testament.
Yeah, but it would be foolish to have him because this is not a Jewish country. This is a Judeo-Christian country. So the Old Testament God, he's just kind of there in the background.
Well, but that brings me to
God, really.
That brings me to my point. You know, so it's kind of like in a situation where you have a business where the old man is running the business for years, and then his son kind of grows up and he gets tired and he says, "Okay, son, I want you to take over my business." But there's this transition period, you see, where the son goes out and he does some work, you know, on his own, but the old man is still kind of the real boss. Well, what happened, it looked like the son went out and made a lot of pretty heavy promises. For instance, he says something in the Bible like, you know, anytime 2 or more of you guys get together and ask for something in my name, hey, you know, I'll see that it's done.
Yeah,
I mean,
you did say that.
That's a pretty heavy promise. So
sure
it seemed to me that this could cause a lot of problems. What
the funny thing is the television preachers only use that promise when they're asking for money.
Well, my point is, what if you and I got together and asked for rain in his name, and then 2 other people got together and asked for snow, and then 2 other people got together and asked for sunshine? You know,
we've done that on the show, and I'm sorry to report that there weren't any results.
Well, but my point is, what if it's true? Okay, then it comes down to how many people can you recruit to ask for whatever it is that you're interested in. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like, in the answer to the question, you know, if the son is still in charge, then it's not really a matter of whether God's in favor of it. It's a matter of how many people are in favor. And so in that sense, you have to look in retrospective and say, well, since we haven't had a minimum wage increase in the last 8 years, then that must have been the will of the majority.
But I don't really recall God talking about democracy.
Well, no, I don't either. But what I'm saying is, based on what it says in the Bible, it seems like people were given the power to fulfill their own wishes by the simple fact of asking for it.
Well, except for the fact that God always comes in and blesses people or curses people. You know, he's always kind of messing around with people. So.
Well, that's the Old Testament God, and that's why I asked the question.
But the problem is, I'm up against the wall here in terms of time. Which do you think it is? He's in favor of it, or he's opposed to it?
Well, I honestly, I think that the old man...
In favor of or opposed to?
The old man is opposed to it.
Okay, he's against it. I thank you very much.
All right.
Take care. Don Richards with the WFLA News Brief. Donald.
Maybe he's
tracking for somebody else?
No, she's going to go to me on time this time. Isn't it amazing? I guess I can just do one station at a time.
Maybe you could just do one station. You know what I mean, Gary?
Maybe I could end up with no stations. How about?
Yeah, could be, Gary. They're you're not the only person in the world who can do traffic.
No, Bob, just the best.
What was that guy's name that used to be a TLP? Eagle, Blackbird,
Stereo?
No, not Stereo. The other one.
Oh yeah.
Duck.
Duck.
No,
Gordon.
Bird.
Gordon Egret.
Bird was his name.
Oh, Bird, yeah.
Yeah, Tom Bird or something like that. Yeah, he used to do traffic. Go ahead with your report.
You haven't introduced me yet, Bob. Last time I started out trying to rush it along. No, you stopped me. I haven't introduced you yet. So this time I sit back and I wait for him to introduce me. What does he do? He says, go ahead, Gary.
It is with a deep sense of pride that I introduce to you our very own Gary McHenry with the WFLA Traffic Report. Mr. McHenry.
Ooh, that's nice. Traffic along Broadway.
Works hard, but a lot of people who work hard don't have anything to show for it. And then an awful lot of people don't seem to work very hard and have an awful lot to show for it. And I was just wondering, in your mind, of course, since you guys always seem to know what God wants. You know what kind of books he wants people to read. You know what, if you can do this stuff, and with the water running in the bathroom, and whether or not you go blind or get hair on your palms. Everybody seems to know where God stands on these issues. So I thought it might be interesting to see where God stood on some of these economic issues as well. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. Hi, Tampa.
Yes, God is great. God is good. Minimum wage is where it should. God's done enough for us already. He gave us a mind. He gave us a strong physical body to go out and make it. Okay? Unless you're handicapped or mentally deficient, then I can understand that. These people on welfare and that looking for a handout from God or anybody else, that's crazy. Minimum wage is where it should be.
Well, minimum wage, of course, is not welfare.
Well, I realize that.
Or even close to welfare.
But he has given us the means to rise above that, just like he has risen.
Well, then how come, God hasn't given you the means to do better than you've done?
How do you know how I'm doing, sir?
Well,
Are you assuming?
I'm assuming that you seem to have so much time on your hands to call talk radio shows. I'm also assuming that you don't seem to have a great deal of time to understand and to study things like welfare and what they are. So actually, you come across as being a little bit ignorant, at least in some areas. So I'm assuming that God didn't give you an awful lot.
Again, sir.
Well,
Have you ever thought that
sir,
maybe
then I'm
you
going,
could
then,
be
then,
wrong
sir,
in one of your assumptions?
Then, sir, I will state as a fact, because you might be lying to me. You might maybe actually know something about what welfare is. But since you're telling me that I have to state it as fact, I will state as fact, sir, that you are ignorant in many areas.
Oh, now you're a psychic,
I was
right?
trying to be polite. No, I'm not a psychic, sir. I can hear your ignorance. You don't know what you're talking about in many instances. It's like trying to somehow get welfare and minimum wage mixed together.
Minimum
so
wage.
I'm assuming God hasn't blessed you with much in the way of intelligence. Probably hasn't blessed you with much in the way of
all. And what
good.
we do with it is what we can do with it, okay?
Well,
Unless you're physically
you can't
or mentally
do much
handicapped.
with it, then I would assume.
But God has given us all the means to rise above.
Then why can't you, sir? Why can't you even understand the difference between the minimum wage and welfare?
I do understand
Are you handicapped,
the difference between minimum wage and welfare.
No, you don't, obviously, from your
what
conversation.
I'm saying is,
Are you
why
handicapped,
do we need to keep
sir?
handing out?
Are you handicapped, sir?
No.
Oh.
I'm fortunate.
You're fortunate.
Yes.
Oh.
In that sense, yes.
Uh-huh. So you think God's opposed to the increase?
He is opposed to the increase.
Thank you ever so much. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Hey, I think that the minimum wage, God has nothing to do with it. I think if we want to do something about it, we should talk to the president or whoever runs the minimum wage.
Well, that's besides the point. What do you think God would be in favor of? Would he be in favor of an increase or a decrease?
I think he should be in favor of raising it.
Now, how much do you think he'd want to raise it?
I heard him on talking on the radio. I think $4.65 would, because people that have families can't afford living off anything cheaper.
So you think God's in favor of the Senate version?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Bird in the background is just more than I can deal with. Clearwater Clear, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Bob.
Yeah.
Listen, I think I'm not a great reader of the book, but I think I have a parable that might show that God is against the minimum wage and also might be in favor of free enterprise. It seems to me, I remember a story about a guy who had a field that needed to be picking, and he went among a group of men and had them work all day for a set wage, and as the day was progressing, he realized he didn't have enough men, so he kept adding them on at the same rate.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, the people who had been working all day started complaining, well, this is not fair. We're getting the same amount of money as the people who just worked an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the landowner said something to the effect of, well, when I made the arrangements with you, you thought it was fair, so how have I wronged it?
Mm-hmm.
So that shows that, number one, God is not interested in a per-hour basis of how somebody is paid, and that it shows some free enterprise in that whatever you agree to work for, don't blame the employer if he hires somebody else at a different rate or you're unhappy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, just thought I'd throw that in.
Well, that's God the Father. Do you think that's God the Son, since most people here in this country profess to be Christians?
Yeah, but that was a parable of Jesus Christ. It wasn't an Old
parable?
Testament story.
That's not from the Old Testament?
No, I don't think so.
Where is it from?
I'm not sure. I don't read the book that well. I just vaguely remember it from grammar school.
Okay, because it seems to me that would be from the Old Testament. I could be wrong.
You could be right, because like I said, I'm not a great expert of the book, but I thought that was one of Christ's parables, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so God is opposed to, from that
point of view. Also, I don't think he's interested, because when he was talking about...
But God does bless people that own businesses with business, right?
Well, I don't see why he would be against people who own businesses.
Well, I didn't say he would be against people, but he seems to go out of his way sometimes to bless them.
Sure, why not?
Well, why not bless workers?
I'm not saying that he shouldn't bless workers. It's just that he's not getting involved with the minimum wage. He's saying,
But he does get involved with people who own businesses by blessing their businesses.
Yeah, but he could also...
So he's got kind of a double standard here between labor and
not
management.
everybody who owns a business is successful.
Well, that's true, but a lot of people give credit to God for blessing their business.
Well, just because they give credit to God doesn't mean God's involved.
Then you don't think he does bless businesses?
Not specifically, no. I don't believe he has a
well, I think,
you're asking,
can you bless a business non-specifically?
No. What I'm trying to say is I don't personally believe that God would be interested in the daily, day-to-day affairs of people's lives down to the minuscule operation of their lives. He's more interested in their overall treatment of other people or their overall view of life. I don't think God...
Then wouldn't you think that he would be involved in the minimum wage then?
No, not specifically.
Because that would be, trying to lift up a whole group of people and trying to redistribute the wealth a little bit more equitably.
No, I understand what you're trying to say, and I agree. I'm just saying, based on what I, quoted in the scripture or paraphrased from the scripture, it would not appear that was consistent with that type of thinking.
I thank you very much.
Okay.
Don Richards at the WFLA News Desk. Donald? And a complete armor all, inside and out, tires included. And they'll take $4 off the cost. 3 locations to serve you, 1880 Gulf to Bay Boulevard, right across from the Clearwater High School. In Seminole, 10471 Park Boulevard, a half a block east of Seminole Boulevard. And in South Tampa, 3622 Gandy Boulevard, Grand Prix Car Wash to the Stars, of course. You'll find that a half a block east of the Crosstown. Again, to the phones we go. Yes, we do. We go to the phones. That's what we shall do. Seminole, you're on there at 970 WFLA. Where do you think God would stand on this question of the minimum wage?
Well, I think that God would stand in favor of the minimum wage to pay people like you who are such idiots.
What's that mean, dearie?
It means that you're off your rocker.
It means I'm off my rocker.
That's
well,
right.
I'm
that fellow who told you the story about the workers in the field who got hired at different times of the day had you by the knobs, man, and you couldn't get out of it.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, you should know.
No, I don't know, dearie.
You should understand that sort of thing. For a man who works 3 hours a day, you need psychiatric help, man.
For a man that works 3 hours a day,
Stop pretending you have such a great concern for your fellow man, especially workers, because you cannot compare what you do and try to indicate that you have any kind of concern for anybody who makes a lot less than you do.
Do you think possibly
so
if
it's
I
all
did
a lot
5
of
hours
bullshit.
a day, do you think if I did
so
5 hours
why don't you
a day,
just hang it up because we're on to you?
What do you mean you're
and
on to
I
me?
reiterate, my friend, you need
not your friend,
help.
you old bag.
H-E-L-P.
But nonetheless, where do you think God stands on that minimum wage? Darn, there she goes, and never did get a chance to register her vote there. Last I saw, it was 9.5 in favor, 9.5 opposed.